The grand throne hall of the Vathari Empire sparkled with light from crystal pillars, each one taller than a starship. The air smelled of rare flowers imported from 100 worlds, and a line of alien nobles stood silently, waiting for the Empress's words. Empress Celira sat on her high throne, a tall figure with silver eyes and a crown that glowed like a dying sun. On the outside, she appeared calm and majestic, but inside, her mind was restless. Her intelligence ministers had been giving her strange reports for weeks. The humans, that young, unpredictable species from the Sol system, had been unusually quiet. No big diplomatic events, no flashy space parades, no sudden political demands. Trade still moved between their worlds and the rest of the galaxy, but something felt different. The humans were working on something, and they were hiding it well. Celira had ruled the Vathari for over a century, and she knew the signs of an empire preparing for something important. She had seen the slow buildup of fleets before wars. She had watched enemies gather resources before colonizing new worlds. She knew how silence could be louder than noise. That night, after the court was dismissed and the throne hall emptied, Celira tried to sleep. The soft, warm air of her private chambers and the gentle hum of the palace's energy shields should have brought her peace. But instead, she drifted into a strange dream. In the dream, she stood in the cold vacuum of space. The stars shone brightly, at first, but one by one, they disappeared, swallowed by shadows. She turned and saw them, enormous warships, thousands of them, drifting like a metal storm. Their dark hulls reflected the faint light of distant suns, and their weapons glowed with silent power. They were so many that they blotted out the galaxy itself. The ships moved as one, their formation perfect, their engines silent, and then, without warning, they turned toward her. She could not see their crews, but she felt their gaze, cold, steady, unafraid. A voice echoed inside her mind, deep and unyielding. The era of human silence is over. Celira woke with a sharp breath. The dream clung to her like frost. She sat up, pressing a hand to her chest. Her heart was beating faster than it had in years. Dreams for the Vathari were not just meaningless visions. They were sometimes warnings, signs that the deep currents of fate were shifting. She called for her chief advisor, Lord Kale, a tall, slender figure with eyes that seemed to read thoughts. When he arrived, she told him about the dream. "It is only a dream." "Your radiance," Kale said softly, though his voice lacked conviction. "Perhaps your mind is troubled by recent reports." Celira narrowed her eyes. "Perhaps, or perhaps, my instincts are telling me something the reports cannot. Humanity is not simply quiet. They are preparing." Kale hesitated, then bowed. "I will increase our intelligence efforts." As he left, Celira rose and walked to the tall glass wall of her chamber. Beyond it, the night sky of Vathari Prime glowed with thousands of stars. She focused on one, a small, faint light. Sol, humanity's home system. A species barely a few centuries into the stars, yet already a mystery to the galaxy's oldest empires. She remembered her first meeting with a human, Ambassador de Cádiz. Hago. They had seemed polite, even humble, but there was a fire in their eyes, a quiet determination she had never seen in other young species. Most young civilizations approached the galaxy with caution, bending under the will of the great empires. But humans bent for no one. The galaxy thought of them as unpredictable, sometimes reckless, but ultimately too small to threaten the old powers. Yet now, Celira was not so sure. In the coming days, she could not shake the feeling that her dream was more than a nightmare. The ministers continued to report strange things. Human mining operations in asteroid belts working day and night without pause. Cargo haulers carrying enormous loads of refined metals to unknown destinations. Encrypted communications increasing between human core worlds. She listened to each report carefully, her silver eyes reflecting the dim light of the chamber. The puzzle was slowly coming together, but the picture was not yet clear. All she knew was that the humans were working toward something vast, and whatever it was, they were determined to keep it hidden. Solira's gaze lingered on the distant light of Sol, her voice a whisper only the stars could hear. If my dream is true, then the galaxy will soon see a storm like no other. She didn't know it yet, but far across the void, deep inside the human-controlled territories, Commander Rafe Andros was standing on the command deck of an orbital shipyard, and around him, in the silent shadow of Mars, the first of 3,000 warships was being born. The silence would not last forever. The orbital shipyard above Mars floated in complete silence, like a giant crown of steel circling the red planet. To the outside galaxy, it was simply one of humanity's many industrial hubs, a place for repairing freighters, building new cargo vessels, and refining metals mined from the asteroid belt. But behind the heavy magnetic shrouds, hidden from every alien sensor, something far greater was taking shape. Commander Rafe Andros stood on the main observation deck, his arms crossed, eyes locked on the massive, unfinished hull of a ship that could change history. The ship's black armor plates gleamed under the artificial lights, swallowing all reflections like a void. Even incomplete, it was bigger than any vessel humanity had ever publicly displayed. Rows of engineers, in sealed suits, moved like ants along its surface, guided by construction drones that darted between scaffolds with precision. Each worker knew the stakes. No one spoke unless absolutely necessary, and when they did, their voices were low, almost reverent, as if they were building something sacred. For months, Rafe had been living in the shadows, following the strict orders of the High Command. No public announcements, no external signals, no deviation from the schedule. Every hole completed was immediately cloaked and drifted into the deep shadow of Mars, until the day they would all reveal themselves. From where he stood, Rafe could see more than a dozen other warships in various stages of construction. Some were only skeletal frames of steel and titanium. Others were almost ready, their weapons mounted but inactive. The largest, the flagship, had a name already painted across its side in proud, bold letters: Sol's Hammer. The secrecy was absolute. The crew's families thought they were working on resource security projects. The shipping manifests were falsified to look like mining equipment. Every communication off the station passed through layered encryption so strong that even the most advanced alien computers would take years to crack. But the galaxy was watching in its own way. Out beyond the shipyard, in the cold black void, long-range human patrol ships scanned constantly for alien probes or spy drones. On 2 occasions, they had detected unidentified signals and acted quickly. Instead of destroying the intruders, which could reveal too much, they jammed and redirected them, making it look like harmless navigation errors. Rafe remembered the day the first alien probe came too close. It had been drifting toward the station, its lens slowly turning toward the magnetic shroud. He had given the order to blind it. A targeted beam of electromagnetic interference hit the probe's systems, forcing it to spin off course. A simple, quiet solution. No explosions, no trails, just gone. Inside the shipyard, life followed a rhythm of endless work. Supplies arrived, on schedule, though never in quantities large enough to draw attention. Metals from the asteroid belt came in disguised containers. Weapon components were built in separate facilities and shipped here in harmless-looking crates, labeled as construction parts. Piece by piece, the warships took form. At night, or what passed for night in the artificial cycles, Rafe often walked the length of the command deck, alone. He would stop at the viewing window, watching the shadows shift over Mars, and think about what this fleet meant. The galaxy saw humanity as a small but unpredictable player, never truly dangerous to the great powers. They thought humans were still learning the rules of the stars. But soon, that illusion would end. He sometimes wondered if the other species would see this as a threat or a warning, maybe both. But he knew one thing. When the fleet was revealed, no empire, no matter how old, would dare underestimate humanity again. Far away, in the shipyard's lower decks, Chief Engineer Mara Leon was checking the power conduits on the second battleship. She had been working 16-hour shifts for weeks, fueled by strong coffee and sheer determination. Like everyone here, she understood that they were not just building ships. They were building a shield, a statement, and a promise to every human colony scattered across the stars. You are not alone. We will protect you. Back on the observation deck, Rafe received a secure transmission from Earth. The voice on the other end was Admiral Cassian Holt, head of the entire project. Commander Andros. The Admiral's voice was calm but carried a weight that pressed into the air. Construction remains ahead of schedule. The High Command is pleased. Continue to maintain full blackout protocols. Remember, the reveal will happen all at once, not a second earlier. Rafe nodded, even though Holt couldn't see him. Understood, sir. The shadows will hold until you give the word. As the call ended, Rafe turned back toward the ships. In the dim light, their black holes looked almost alive, like sleeping giants waiting to wake. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, not of fear, but of anticipation. One day soon, the galaxy would see what had. The throne room of the Vathri Empire felt colder than usual. Empress Salira sat in silence as her intelligence ministers gave their morning report. Their voices were steady, but each word only deepened the unease in her chest. Your Radiance, began Minister Elver, a thin, nervous figure. Mineral shipments from human-controlled asteroid belts have increased by 180% over the last cycle. Salira leaned forward slightly. And what are they doing with these minerals? Elver's eyes flickered downward. Unknown, Your Radiance. None of the trade manifests explain the excess. The goods are vanishing into restricted sectors. Another minister stepped forward, holding a shimmering data slate. There is also a shortage of certain metals on the open market. Tritanium arcanite, refined durasteel, the same materials used in heavy warship construction. Human trade companies have stopped selling them entirely. The Empress's silver eyes narrowed. Her long fingers tapped the armrest of her throne, and no other species has seen where these resources are going. The ministers exchanged glances. None spoke. Her heart beat faster. She had seen this pattern before. An empire gathers resources in silence. Production spikes. Markets shift. And then, a new fleet emerges. For years, the galaxy had considered humanity unpredictable, but too small to challenge the old powers. They had fought well in minor border skirmishes, won unexpected trade deals, and held their colonies with fierce loyalty. But this was different. This felt like the calm before a great storm. She dismissed the ministers and walked to the tall balcony overlooking the spire-filled capital. Below her, the shining towers of Vathri Prime rose into the clouds. It was a vision of stability, of power, yet she could not shake the image from her dream. The sky filled with dark warships, their shadows swallowing the stars. 2 days later, a new report arrived, one that made her blood run cold. A Vathri scout vessel, the Silver Talon, had been assigned to patrol the neutral space bordering human territory. It was routine work, nothing dangerous. But then, the Talon entered a restricted human sector by accident. Moments later, its signal vanished. The only transmission they received was a short, scrambled burst before the connection died completely. For words, Colossus cited. Closing in. The bridge went silent as she read the report. Even the guards standing along the walls shifted uneasily. The word Colossus was not one used lightly. In military terms, it meant a vessel so massive and powerful that it defied standard classification. Where is the Silver Talon now? She asked. Lost, Your Radiance, replied Lord Kale, her most trusted advisor. No wreckage found, No distress beacon. It simply vanished. Her mind raced. The humans did not destroy ships without cause. This disappearance was deliberate. A message. They were telling her that they could remove one of her vessels from existence without leaving a trace. That night, she could not sleep. She paced the length of her private chambers, her robe dragging softly over the polished floor. Her mind replayed the scout's last words again and again. Colossus sighted. What kind of ship could make a trained crew send such a warning before vanishing? The next morning, she summoned Kale. Double our intelligence efforts, she ordered. Send spies, send traitors, send anyone who can blend among them. I want to know what the humans are building. Kale bowed, but his voice was cautious. It will be difficult. Human territories have increased patrols. Their communication channels are locked behind encryption we have never seen before. And he hesitated. And what? They have begun pulling their ambassadors from several smaller alien states, quietly, without public reason. The realization hit her like ice water. Those smaller states would now feel isolated and likely turn to humanity for protection. It was not just warships they were building. They were building influence. By the end of the week, rumors began to spread among the outer colonies. Whispers in docking bays, fragments of intercepted chatter. Someone claimed to have seen a massive fleet cloaked near the asteroid belt. Another spoke of cargo haulers carrying weapons instead of goods. None of it could be confirmed, but all of it fed into the Empress's growing dread. She returned to the balcony one evening, staring again at the distant light of Sol in the night sky. The air was cool, and the faint hum of the city surrounded her. She wondered if the humans were watching her just as she was watching them. Her instincts, honed over a century of ruling, told her the truth no report could yet prove. Humanity was preparing for something monumental. And when they finally stepped out of the shadows, the galaxy would never be the same. Far across the void, hidden behind the magnetic shrouds of Mars, Commander Rafe Andros oversaw the final armor plating on Sol's hammer. The first of 3,000 ships stood ready for its final trials. The silence was almost over. In the deep silence of space, fate often moved without warning. On an otherwise quiet day in the Sol system, the sun itself became the galaxy's most unexpected witness. It began with a sudden, violent burst of light, a massive solar flare erupting from the surface of the sun. The radiation wave tore across the inner planets, temporarily overloading sensor systems and scrambling communications. Even the advanced cloaking fields of the human shipyards flickered for just a few moments. But in those moments, the shadows failed. For 13 minutes, the magnetic shrouds around the Mars orbital shipyard became thin as mist. Where once there had been only darkness, now there was metal, vast stretches of steel and titanium, rows of warships, lined in silent formation. Massive carriers, sleek destroyers, and colossal battleships shimmered under the shipyard lights, their black holes sharp against the red glow of Mars. Far away, Vathari deep space probes caught the sight. They were simple machines, not meant for war, but they recorded everything: the scale, the design, the sheer number of ships. Even the flagship, Sol's hammer, stood clear in the frame like a giant among giants. The images were grainy, but there was no mistaking the truth. Hours later, in the heart of the Vathari capital, Empress Salira sat in the War Council chamber as her intelligence chief brought the images to life on the central holoscreen. The chamber was silent, except for the faint hum of the display. Ministers leaned forward, their eyes wide. The ships filled the projection, their dark surfaces absorbing the light. Even distorted by distance, they radiated power. Salira's silver eyes locked on the flagship. "Is this confirmed?" Her voice was quiet, almost calm, but the room could feel the tension beneath. "Yes, Your Radiance," the intelligence chief replied. "The solar flare compromised their cloaking fields. Our probes captured these images before they restored them The timestamp is precise. This is real. One of her admirals spoke, his voice breaking the heavy air. 3,000, perhaps more. And look at the designs. Some of these hulls are larger than anything in our fleet. A minister shook his head in disbelief. How could they build so much without the galaxy noticing? Salira already knew the answer. Silence, patience, precision. The humans had been hiding their work, piece by piece, spreading construction across hidden yards, using misdirection to mask their resource. Movements. She turned away from the screen and walked toward the wide window of the chamber. Outside, the capital glittered under its protective dome. But for the first time in decades, she saw it not as invincible, but as vulnerable. Her mind raced. If these ships were for defense, then humanity had built the most powerful shield in the galaxy. But if they were for offense, she closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the dream that had haunted her. In it, the stars had vanished under the shadow of countless warships. Now she realized it had not been a vision of the future, it had been a warning. Turning back to the council, her voice was sharp but steady. Send this intelligence to every trusted military commander, quietly. No public broadcasts. I will decide how and when we respond. The room stirred with nervous energy. No one dared speak against her, but the fear was plain in their faces. Later that night, in her private chambers, Salira stood alone before a star map. The faint light of Sol blinked in the distance, a reminder of the humans' home. She traced a path with her finger, imagining the flight of their warships across the void. What unsettled her most was not the fleet's size, though it was staggering, but the fact that humanity had chosen this moment to let the galaxy glimpse it. The solar flare had been an accident, but the humans had made no move to erase the images or threaten those who had seen them. It was as if they wanted the galaxy to know just enough. Across the void, in the Mars shipyard, Commander Rafe Andros stood before Sol's hammer. The solar flare had caused minor disruptions, but repairs were already complete. Engineers moved quickly, sealing every vulnerability the flare had revealed. Rafe knew the images had been captured. He also knew it was inevitable. Let them see, he murmured to himself. Let them wonder what else we're hiding. The stars outside were silent again, but the galaxy was no longer at peace. Whispers were spreading in every port, every court, every council chamber. Humanity's shadow had grown, and it could no longer be ignored. Asterisk. For weeks, the galaxy had been buzzing with rumors. Grainy images of the Mars shipyard had spread through shadow networks, smuggled data channels, and whispered tavern talk on distant colonies. Every empire had seen them, though most denied it publicly. Some said the humans had built a fleet of 100 ships, others swore it was 1,000. The boldest rumors claimed the number was even greater. No one knew the truth, until now. In the heart of human space, 6 star systems came alive in perfect synchrony. On the bridge of Sol's hammer, Commander Rafe Andros stood before the main display. The countdown timer glowed red, seconds melting away. His crew worked silently, each person knowing they were about to become part of history. The order had come directly from the High Command. Full reveal. All fleets, all systems, all at once. It was not to be a slow announcement. It would be a single moment, one the galaxy could not ignore. Begin, Rafe commanded. Across 6 systems, the shadows fell away. Cloaking fields deactivated. Magnetic shrouds powered down. And in the open light of space, the truth emerged. 3,000 warships. They drifted in flawless formation, their black holes gleaming under the light of their suns. Titans of steel and firepower, each one carried weapons systems that no alien intelligence had ever seen before. Carriers the size of cities. Destroyers built for speed and precision. Massive dreadnoughts whose armor was said to be layered with experimental alloys, resistant to all known energy weapons, and at the center of it all, the flagship Sol's hammer. Twice the length of the largest alien battleship, its hull carried no decoration, No unnecessary markings. It was a statement in itself, strength without vanity. From every ship, a signal went out to every major galactic communication hub. It was a single transmission, repeated in all known languages. This is the United Earth Fleet. The era of human silence is over. In the Vathari capital, Empress Celera watched the reveal live. She had expected a display of strength, but nothing like this. The scale of it stole her breath. Her council chamber was filled with uneasy murmurs. Some of her admirals stared at the screen in disbelief, others in quiet fear. In distant marketplaces, alien traders stopped in their tracks. As the holographic broadcast filled the air, on neutral worlds, citizens gathered in streets to watch. Even pirates and smugglers in hidden outposts paused to see the message. It was not a threat. The humans had not declared war. They had not made demands. But the silence after the message was heavier than any threat could have been. Rafe stood tall on the bridge of Saul's Hammer, knowing the eyes of the galaxy were on him. The fleet stretched out before him like an ocean of black steel, perfectly still, perfectly ready. In his heart, he thought of the human colonies on the edge of known space worlds that had lived for years in fear of being abandoned or conquered. Today, they would know the truth. They were protected. Admiral Cassian Holt's voice came through the comms. "Commander, the message is being received across all channels. No interference. Every empire is watching." Rafe allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Let them remember this sight." Back on Vathari Prime, Celera dismissed her council with a wave of her hand. When the room was empty, she remained seated, staring at the frozen image of the human fleet on her private holoscreen. She felt both anger and a reluctant respect. In her mind, she played out the possibilities. This could be the dawn of a long peace, or the beginning of a dangerous new era. But one thing was certain. The galaxy had a new center of gravity, and it was called Earth, far from the Empress's palace. On hundreds of alien worlds, leaders and warlords gathered with their advisors. Some began plotting alliances with humanity. Others began preparing defenses. But all of them understood the same truth. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows, and it would not step back in the quiet of space. The 3,000 ships remained motionless, their engines dormant, their weapons idle. Yet their very presence felt like a storm waiting beyond the horizon. The reveal was over. The message was clear. The council chamber of the Vathari Empire was usually a place of certainty. Orders were given, plans were made, and the galaxy obeyed. But now, the air was heavy with unease. The images of the human fleet, all 3,000 ships, still hovered on the central holoscreen, casting cold blue light across the faces of the Empress's advisors. Empress Celera sat at the head of the table, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. Around her, the council debated in anxious voices. "We must prepare our fleets," one admiral said firmly. "This is a threat. The humans are making a show of force." "They have made no demands," countered another minister. "Perhaps they only wish to protect themselves. They don't need 3,000 warships for defense," the admiral snapped back. Celera raised her hand, and silence fell instantly. Her silver eyes scanned the room. "You are all correct in some way, but this is not a time for rash moves. If we rush to war, we could lose more than our fleets. If we stand still, we could lose our place in the galaxy." She rose from her seat and walked to the tall windows, looking out over the sprawling city of Vathari Prime. The towers reached into the clouds, symbols of centuries of power. But for the first time in her reign, she wondered if those towers could fall. The humans had played their hand with flawless precision. They had shown strength, without a single shot fired. That made them more dangerous than any shouting warlord. They were calm, patient, deliberate, and that meant they had a plan far bigger than the galaxy yet understood. Celera knew she had two paths. One was to prepare for war, gathering allies and resources to counter humanity's new strength. The other was to open the door to diplomacy, before the gap between their powers grew too wide to cross. She turned back to the council. "We will send an envoy," she said at last. "Someone I trust completely. They will request a private audience with the human high command." Several voices rose in surprise. "An envoy, your radiance, that could be seen as weakness." "Perhaps," Salira replied calmly, "but it could also be seen as wisdom. And in this moment, wisdom may save us more than weapons." Her gaze fell on Lord Kale, her most trusted advisor. He was tall, sharp-eyed, and loyal beyond question. "Kale, you will go." Kale bowed deeply. "I will serve, your radiance. But what message shall I carry?" Salira's voice was low, deliberate. "Tell them the Vathri Empire wishes to speak as equals. Tell them we seek understanding, and perhaps cooperation. But also, listen, I want to know why they have built this fleet. Not the reason they will say in public, the real reason." Kale nodded. "I understand." 2 days later, the Vathri diplomatic vessel L'Aurora's wing slipped quietly from the capital's docks. It carried no weapons beyond standard defenses. Its hull, painted in the white, tanned gold colors of peace. Kale sat in the main chamber, reviewing the transmission codes that would request docking with humanity's flagship, Saul's Hammer. The journey was tense. Human-controlled space was heavily patrolled now, their warships moving with precision. As the Aurora's wing approached the Mars sector, massive silhouettes emerged from the darkness, human destroyers, their black hulls reflecting the faint light of the sun. They flanked the vessel, guiding it forward without a word. Kale had traveled through many alien territories in his life, but he had never felt watched the way he did now. The human ships moved like predators that did not need to roar to show their power. When the Aurora's wing reached Saul's Hammer, Kale finally understood the word Colossus. The flagship was enormous, its surface covered with weapon emplacements and shimmering armor. Yet there was an elegance to its design, efficient, precise, with no wasted lines. It was a warship built not just to fight, but to endure. Docking was smooth. The airlock opened, and Kale stepped into the quiet corridors of the human flagship. A tall man in a dark uniform waited for him, his posture disciplined, his eyes steady. "Lord Kale of the Vathri Empire," the man said. "I am Commander Rafe Andros. Welcome aboard Saul's Hammer." Kale inclined his head slightly. "Commander Andros, I bring the greetings of Empress Salira and her request for a private meeting with your high command." Rafe's gaze did not waver. "You will have your meeting? Follow me." As they walked, Kale noted the subtle efficiency of the crew. No one wasted a step. No one lingered. Every movement was purposeful. This was not a fleet built for ceremony. It was built for certainty. Somewhere deep in his chest, Kale felt a flicker of unease. The Empress had sent him to seek understanding, but as the silent power of Saul's Hammer surrounded him, he began to wonder if understanding the humans would only make them seem even more unstoppable. The meeting room aboard Saul's Hammer was nothing like Kale had expected. It was not grand or decorated with symbols of power. There were no banners, no gilded chairs, no walls of glowing holograms. Instead, it was a simple chamber of smooth metal, with a single polished table in the center. Commander Rafe Andros was already there, seated with a few senior human officers. They all rose as Kale entered, a small gesture of respect that caught him by surprise. "Lord Kale," Rafe said, his voice calm and steady, "please, sit. This is a conversation between equals." Kale studied him for a moment before taking his seat. "Commander Andros, I am here as the voice of Empress Salira. She wishes to understand the purpose of your fleet. The galaxy has seen your power. Now they wish to know your intentions." Rafe's gaze was firm but not hostile. "Our intentions are simple. Humanity will not start wars, but neither will we allow our people to be threatened, occupied, or treated as pawns in the games of older empires. This fleet exists so that no one, no matter how ancient or vast, will mistake us for a species that can be controlled. One of the human officers leaned forward. We have learned from history, Lord Kale. Young civilizations often grow under the shadow of older ones. They are told to know their place, to trade what they are told, to fight when they are told, and to stand down when ordered. We will not live under that shadow. Kale folded his hands. Your message has already been heard, Commander. But you must know how this appears to the galaxy. 3,000 warships is not a shield. It is a wall, and walls can be seen as a challenge. Rafe's expression softened slightly. Perhaps, but this wall will stand whether others see it as a challenge or not. If the galaxy wishes peace, it will find us willing. If it seeks conquest, it will find us ready. The room was quiet for a moment. Kale felt the weight of those words. They were not boastful. They were not threats. They were simply truth. He leaned back, choosing his next words carefully. The Empress wishes to avoid a path that leads to war. She suggests cooperation, trade, communication, perhaps even an alliance. Rafe exchanged a glance with his officers before speaking. We will consider it. But understand, Lord Kale, any agreement will be on equal terms. No hidden clauses. No quiet demands. Humanity has earned its place at the table, and we will not give it up. Kale could see it clearly now. This fleet was not just military might. It was a declaration of identity. Humanity was telling the galaxy that they were here to stay, and they would not bow to anyone. As the meeting continued, the humans spoke of mutual defense, of shared patrols along trade routes, and of neutral zones where no warship from any species would be allowed. They spoke with confidence, but not arrogance. Every word was measured, every promise deliberate. When the discussions ended, Rafe rose and extended his hand. Kale hesitated only for a moment before taking it. The grip was firm, solid, not the grip of a conqueror, but of someone who intended to hold his ground. I will carry your words to the Empress, Kale said, and I will be ready for her. Reply, Rafe answered. As Kale left the meeting room, he passed a wide observation window. Beyond it, the human fleet hung in the darkness, thousands of ships, motionless, yet alive with quiet power. He realized then that this was not a display meant to intimidate him. It was a reminder to the galaxy. Humanity was no longer a small voice in a vast chorus. They were their own song now. Back aboard the Aurora's wing, Kale sat alone for a long while before the ship departed. He thought of the Empress, of her sharp mind and cautious heart. He knew she would see the same thing he had seen, that the humans were not playing a game of bluff. They truly had the strength to enforce their will, but they also had the discipline to choose when to use it. Somewhere deep inside, Kale felt a reluctant respect blooming. Humanity was dangerous, yes, but perhaps they were also the kind of power the galaxy needed, a force that would not bow to fear or to tradition. As the Aurora's wing moved away from Saul's hammer, the flagship remained still in the void, surrounded by its silent armada. Watching it grow smaller in the viewport, Kale whispered to himself, "They are ready for anything." The skies above Vathery Prime glowed with the light of 2 moons as the Aurora's wing descended toward the Imperial Palace. The golden towers shimmered in the night air, but for Empress Celera, the beauty did little to ease her mind. She had been waiting for Kale's return. Every hour since his departure, she had thought about the humans, their silent power, their fleet, like a black sea in space. She told herself she was ready for whatever news he brought, but deep inside, she feared the truth would only confirm what her instincts already knew. Kale entered the throne hall alone, the faint hum of the doors closing behind him. He bowed low, then stepped forward to stand before her. His face was calm, but there was a weight in his eyes. "Well?" Celera asked quietly. "They agreed to meet," Kale said. I spoke with Commander Rafe Andros aboard their flagship, and they are not seeking war, Kale replied, but they will not bend to anyone. Their fleet is both shield and wall. They say it exists to ensure no one can control them, and I believe them. They speak plainly, without threats, yet every word carries strength. Salira studied him, searching for any hint of doubt. Do you think they are bluffing? No, Kale said firmly. They are prepared for peace, but they are equally prepared for war, and they will not hesitate if forced. This fleet is not a showpiece. It is the foundation of their future. The hall was silent. Even the guards seemed to hold their breath. Salira rose from her throne and walked to the great balcony overlooking the city. Lights stretched out into the horizon, a symbol of the Empire's long dominance. But now, she saw those lights differently. Power was shifting, and her empire would no longer stand alone. At the top, Kale joined her at the balcony. They spoke of cooperation, trade, even joint patrols along neutral borders. But they will not accept terms that place them beneath any other power. They believe they have earned their place at the galaxy's table, and they have the ships to prove it. Silver eyes fixed on the night sky. Somewhere beyond those stars, the human fleet waited, silent but watchful. The galaxy will react to this, she said. Some will fear them, others will try to join them, and some will try to challenge them. Challenges will fail, Kale said softly. I saw their discipline, their unity. That is what makes them dangerous. Not just the ships, but the will to stand together. The Empress said nothing for a long time. She thought of the dream that had first warned her, the sky swallowed by shadows. The voice that had said, the era of human silence is over. She had not understood it then. Now she did. This changes everything, she murmured. The political map of the galaxy will shift. Alliances will break. New ones will form. Humanity has stepped into the center, and every other power must now decide whether to face them or stand beside them. Kale nodded. What will we do, Your Radiance? Salira turned to him, her expression unreadable. We will watch. We will speak. And when the time is right, we will choose our place. For now, we will not provoke them, but neither will we submit. The Vathari Empire has survived many storms. We will survive this one too. But in her heart, she knew this was not just another storm. This was a new age. Humanity had declared itself, not with speeches or conquests, but with a silent armada that said everything without a single shot fired. That night, long after Kale left, Salira remained on the balcony. The stars shimmered above, endless and cold. Somewhere among them, Saul's hammer and its fleet drifted, their engines quiet, their weapons idle, for now. She imagined them moving through the dark, 3,000 strong, a tide of steel ready to rise at a single command. The image brought both fear and a strange, reluctant respect. Her final thought before retiring was a whisper to herself. If they can build this in secret, what else are they capable of? Far away, aboard Saul's hammer, Commander Rafe Andros stood at his own viewing port, looking out at the stars. He did not know the Empress's thoughts, but he understood the weight of what had been done. The galaxy had seen them. The galaxy would remember. For now, the fleet would wait. But when the moment came, humanity would be ready, and the galaxy would never again speak of them as a small, young species. The silence had ended, and nothing could turn it back.